Welcome to the Touchdown NFL podcast, and today we've got a very special episode for everyone. We are going to be doing the captain's mock draft, joined to you by everyone's favourites, Lee, Simon, Rory, and Jack. How is everyone doing?
I'm all right, mate. How are you?
Can't complain.
Yeah, we're good. Very good. Looking forward to this. We've got the banter flying before we even got on anyway. And then it's going to ramp up once to get the trades flying and the picks going, I guess.
We've been working the phones all morning. I've not been doing any real work. I've just been texting people all day. Just lining up different permutations. You never know what's going to happen in the draft, especially with you lot. I know what you're up to already. I've seen it. I've already heard about people slipping. So I think outside the box a little bit, but I'm ready. Let's have it.
Well, I'm hoping there's enough lubrication for Jaden Daniels to go first overall, but I don't really like my chances.
I think you'll be very upset, Kieran.
Yeah, as the commissioner, I haven't actually seen anyone's picks yet, but it's going to be interesting to see how everyone goes. So first on the clock is going to be Lee with the Chicago Bears.
Just a bit of housekeeping before we get started, just for the listener, the watcher. Were we doing what we would do or predictive? We've probably said this before, but I need to
I would say, personally, a little bit of both, so to speak. I think you can do what you think's right in terms of the play.
Some realism.
Yeah, obviously team needs and obviously respecting how much a quarterback means to a team at this moment in time. I think that's important, but that's just my opinion. I'm happy to go either way.
It's not going to make any difference to the first pick, just to break through the suspense that I might have, potentially been building up for anyone watching. So I'm on the clock with the Bears, and Keenan Allen doesn't show up at your pro day unless you're going to that team. So no shock. I'm just going to go through this first pick very, very easily. I'm going to play my hand with the best player in the draft and put Caleb Williams on the Bears, which is where he's going to be in a few weeks anyway. So let's nail it down and get moving on to pick 2.
Yeah, I was going to say, probably should have gone for Bo Nix, far superior player, but here we are. So second on the clock is going to be Rory with the Washington Commanders.
So I'm going to do what I think will probably offend the commissioner the most. Instead of going Jaden Daniels, I'm going to go with Drake May, number 2 for the Commanders. For me, he's got a higher ceiling than Jaden Daniels, younger prospect coming in, big arm. And for me, he looks on tape, he's got everything going for him. He's got the potential to be Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, that sort of guy. I'm not saying he'll get to that level, but I think it's not a safe pick, but I think he's clearly the second quarterback off the board. So I'm going to go Drake May, start the Commanders on a fresh path, and I think they've got a lot of upside and potential there.
Very good pick. I think most people in this group had him as QB2, so everything's kind of shaken out as expected, but you won't be getting a Christmas card from me. So next up is Jack for the New England Patriots.
Yeah, so I'm going to open this one up by saying this pick is on the clock. He's on the block, not on the clock. I'm on the clock. The pick is on the block. Does anyone fancy moving up? This isn't helped by the fact I own the Vikings pick. And I, as the Vikings, don't want this pick. But does anyone else want this pick?
Jack, just a quick interest. Would you have wanted this pick if Drake May was still on the board?
Yes.
As the Vikings and as the Patriots, or?
Yeah, both. If I was the Patriots, I wouldn't have been trading this pick. I'd have been sprinting that card in.
It's a damning indictment, that Jaden Daniels, isn't it?
Sorry, Kieran.
It's all right. He's got a Heisman to keep himself warm at night.
Is there any interest?
Not from my 7 teams. Sorry, Jack. I don't think so.
No, that's fine. I think for me, I think this pick, if this is how it falls, I think this pick may get traded. I don't know. I don't know what the Patriots will actually do on the night. But I don't think I'd feel good enough about either of the top 2 quarterbacks left on the board to kind of mortgage my franchise if I were the Vikings or another team who's looking to move up. So I think I would just take the player who I think is the best player left on the board, which is Marvin Harrison Jr. I think the Patriots need a quarterback, but I don't think they're set up for success with a quarterback. I don't think either of these guys are the kind of guys who really elevate your team in the way that maybe like a CJ Stroud did last year, right? Or maybe like we think Caleb Williams or Drake May would. So I'd get a receiver, I'd stick with Brissett for a year and see where I end up in 2025. That'll be me.
And Spencer Rattler will likely be there in the second round for the most Patriots move of all time, I don't doubt.
There you go. Lock it in.
So, coming to the number 4 pick, the Arizona Cardinals, probably one of the worst teams in the league last year, I'd have to say, even after getting rid of Cliff Kingsbury. But that pick's going to go to you, Simon.
Sneaky coolest uniforms in the league now, though. If you wear white cleats with those all red uniforms, I was surprised about that. I thought I didn't like it, but I do. I've got to be honest. I think this board has screwed me over a little bit. I thought if Jaden had gone number 2, Rory, I'd have a market here. But I'm putting this one out to for offers, and I don't think I'm going to find any at this rate. And that's a bit worrying for me because I was thinking I could get a King's ransom here earlier today, and it scuppered my moves for later as well. I've had it all planned out. And Rory, in one fell swoop, you've killed it. I couldn't believe
this
it.
This what happens, isn't it? The whole draft board could just go just like that.
This scenario is actually a really interesting one in the draft, where everyone's predicting a big interest and moves going up forward. But really, if those 2 quarterbacks go first, who is willing to take the plunge? I know McCarthy's obviously got a lot of popular opinion, probably more so than our in the league. But I know Jaden Daniels is obviously, I think some people will like him and others won't. You've got the Giants, you've got the Raiders. Even the Broncos, if they can scrape together some capital in future years, I don't know. But there's some opportunities there. But I don't think anyone's going to be able to give the Cardinals what they want at this stage if it's not going to be the Vikings. So I guess I stand pat too. That changes things. That means I go receiver, doesn't it? Really? Has anyone seen the Cardinals depth chart at the moment? I think Greg Dortch tops it right now. Obviously, would have been Marvin if he was there. But I think I'm going to go with Rome Odunze. Well, that was a little bit of a bonus. I've got to be honest, yeah. Upsetting Kieran, but mostly because I think his all-round game is fantastic. I think obviously he comes into that position in that team, de facto wide receiver 1. I know he's been comped to Larry Fitzgerald a lot, which is kind of cute as well, I suppose, in this situation. I know, like if you ever get to Matt Harmon, his reception perception, the sheer amount of volume of different things he's done at college compared to the guys is incredible. And I love his tape and the kind of character, everything about him. There's not a question mark about him as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to go with Rome Odunze here.
Can't say I'm not offended, but you're on the beers. Can't blame you. So he is going to be up with his Los Angeles Chargers next, and hopefully he doesn't go defense because we know from Brandon Staley's tenure that defense doesn't really win championships on the West Coast.
No, and probably not in this draft either, as much as I'd like it to. The trade market is extremely cold at the moment, isn't it? I think if went like this on the night for the Chargers, I think they've been liking and wanting to trade back. However, even with 2 quarterbacks on the board out of the so-called Big 4, the market seems very, very cold. However, I guess as we get later and later into the draft and into the first round, it becomes a little more palatable to jump up, doesn't it, for anyone? So again, I'll do my due diligence and I'll offer it out to anyone who would like to jump up, make a little jump up, but also happy to make a pick if no one does make me an offer.
I will throw my hat into the ring, but I might have difficulty swinging it. The Saints would like to have a look, but getting to pick number 5 from pick number 14 could be a little bit tricky with what the picks we have. I could offer maybe a second in 2025 and supplement it with a 5th round this year. But because we lack a 3rd and a 4th round pick, it is a bit of a struggle. I wouldn't want to give our 2nd round pick from this year up, but I don't know whether that floats your boat.
My initial instinct of that is it doesn't really touch the sides. Since I'm pretty sure you're coming up for a quarterback and you're going up into the top 5, I'd want a 1st round pick to come back. So I think with the Saints, the way they are, I don't think it would be a palatable offer.
Why don't you give him 18 and T. Higgins?
No, I'm
trying to do a serious mock draft here. There's no
He's requested a trade. What do you want?
all that money,
I mean-
Derek Carr, and then throwing picks after it as well is it's classic Saints, isn't it? I suppose. But Sean Payton's gone. So I don't know. They've been a bit more serious nowadays. Who knows?
I mean, the only other, I mean, I'll get to the Saints want to come up ahead of the Raiders and the Broncos, don't they? And there's two, and potentially the Giants as well. It's a big jump up, but I can, I get the realism. But I think it's too big for the Raiders to do as well. And obviously, I control the Raiders a little bit later on, but I still see that as too big of a jump for them to afford.
Do you want me to go into? I don't know how we want to do it with the trades. Do you want me to tell you what the plan was for the Saints? Is that something, or do you want me to keep my?
Are you going to increase your offer?
No. That's all I've got.
I would, open it up to give me your kind of workings out, I guess then.
So my thinking along that path is the Saints really do need an offensive tackle. Now, I know that people are saying it's a loaded group, but I think there's a lot of question marks about guard tackle versatility for people like Faltano, Fuaga. So to me, Joe Alt is a clear left tackle franchise sort of setting left tackle, and I think New Orleans now are getting into a desperate situation now. We've got the Ramchick injury. Penning hasn't panned out as it is, so I think they will look to move into the top 10 if they can. The pick situation makes it difficult because they haven't got very many mid-round picks, so to give up that 2 this year, I wouldn't do it personally, but I do think they'll be looking at offensive tackles. So I want to get ahead of probably Tennessee, because that's the pick that everybody sees where Joe Alt's going. So that was my thinking behind that one.
Yeah, I think it's very fair. Do you have a quite sizable drop off between Alt and Fashanu then?
I didn't have, and then obviously the testing with Fashanu, the hand size. Not that I'm sure how big a difference that makes. But obviously there was some strength issues on the Ohio State tape. I do like Fashanu, but I think there is a clear gap where Alt is the number one. I think I've got less concerns over Alt than anybody else in the offensive tackle class.
That's fair. Yeah, I get you thinking. I have Fashanu as OT1, but that's just me. I understand thinking. I'm going to guess I'm not going to get a trade offer that's satisfactory then by the sounds of it. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to take Malik Neighbors from LSU. My only other player who's really in consideration, because I need to get an offensive playmaker, would have been Brock Bowers, but I can't take Brock Bowers at 5 with the potential contract ramifications later on down the line, because he's basically got to be the best tight end in the league when he comes to a contract renewal for it to be palatable, considering his 5th-year option. Whereas obviously, wide receivers now, they're getting paid so much. And, I believe that Malik Neighbors will be a massive difference maker in day one. He'll give the Chargers the juice that they've just not seen at receiver for, a long time, let's say that. And, he gives Justin Herbert a weapon who he can use right away. We've got Josh Palmer. He's a good receiver, not a great receiver. And then obviously you've got the massive question mark, which is Quentin Johnston. You elevate that group massively by putting Malik Neighbors in there. You give him a potential superstar. And as much as this team is going to run the damn ball a heck of a lot, it's a good idea to have a good wide receiver on your squad at this, in this day and age. So we can beef up the offensive line a little bit later on. Obviously not in our mocks, we're only in the first round. But that's the kind of overall draft sort of scenario and the strategy that I'll be going for in just dropping a superstar into this offense and letting him build that relationship with Justin Herbert over the next, 5, 6, 7 years and possibly. And the commission's now back on side.
Yeah, no, quality pick. Best receiver on the board, so good that you went to a good team. Justin Herbert might win a Super Bowl with that kid. Maybe. But up next is going to be back to Jack with Big Blue, the New York Giants.
And I think this would be an interesting one if this is how the board fell, because I think all we're seeing is the Giants being mocked, either whichever one of those top 3 receivers is left, or kind of the pick of the bunch if they're all there. So obviously I didn't trade up from 6 to 3 when I was open to offers with the Patriots. I didn't trade up to 4 when I was offering the pick, and I didn't trade him to 5 when Lee had the pick, because I don't think either of these two quarterbacks are worth that kind of future draft capital. Even a small move like 3 to 6, we've seen that cost future firsts, and I don't think any of these guys are worth it. That being said, I don't know who else you take at 6 if this is how the board falls, if not a quarterback, if you're the Giants. That front office and that coaching staff, I think, need to get something going. And they've got an easy out with Daniel Jones after next year. So I would take the guy who is my QB3, cover your ears, Kieran. I would take JJ McCarthy at this spot. I don't feel great about it. This is not a guy I would like to take in the top 10, but I feel like I've been painted into a corner here, partly by myself taking Marvin Harrison at 3. But it's not a pick I love, but I think I don't know what else you do, because you can't even take one of those offensive tackles. I don't think. I mean, I know Evan Neal hasn't been great, but I think it's too early to give up there. So yeah, it'd be pretty crap if you felt this bad about a top 6 pick, but that's the situation they've landed themselves in.
I mean, it's kind of a repeat of when they drafted Daniel Jones, no?
Maybe.
I mean,
he doesn't cost $40 million a year, so
yeah, I think Daboll's a good coach. He can get stuff out of him. Like I say, I don't think McCarthy's ever going to be like a top 5 guy in the league, which I think May and Caleb could be. I don't think they will be, but I think they have that potential. But I mean, I feel like he's an improvement on Daniel Jones, and that's something, right? Like, certainly at cost, he's an improvement, but he's a massive improvement at cost. And we know that there's nothing more valuable than a rookie quarterback contract. So yeah, that would be my pick. But like I say, it's not one I feel great about.
Is what it is at this point. I mean, I would have gone offensive line maybe, or honest, maybe even defense. But if JJ can be the game manager he was at Michigan, that might actually be a very solid pick and will definitely pay dividends in future if he can continue to be what he was at Michigan. But next pick, we've already talked about potentially them going O-line, so we're going to have to see what Rory's doing with the Tennessee Titans.
Rory, before you say anything, are you open to trading this, or are you not?
No, sorry.
No problem. Just wait to test the waters there. Be interested to see, because
yeah, I know. Yeah, not
first year of a new regime in Tennessee. I thought maybe stock up a little bit.
Yeah,
but,
I think I was getting a bit edgy because I did think Jack might be painted himself into a Joe Alt corner there, where he might have gone that way. So I will go Joe Alt. I'll keep things moving. That I do think he's got the size, he's got the length, he's got the athleticism. I think there's a little bit of work to be done still. I don't think he's I don't think he's one of the best that we've seen in sort of 5 years or whatever. But I think he'll do the job at Tennessee, and they do need help there. I mean, it's either wide receiver or tackle. I'd be interested if one of the top 3 receivers is there, because obviously Brian Callahan has gone there. He's got his dad as the offensive line coach. I could see them, if one of those top 3 receivers is there, going in that direction early, thinking that they can get around 2 offensive tackle and coach him up, because obviously that's what an offensive line coach is going to think. He's going to be able to mold a ball of clay into something functional. So that would have been interesting. But I think the way the board's played out, Alt is the pick here, and I can't see him moving off the spot.
Yeah, I like the Joe Alt pick. I think we went over it when we did the Go for 2 pod. Lee and Jack, best technician in terms of, toolbox, hands, understanding of the game. I think despite it being a close call, I think Joe Alt is definitely the best tackle in this draft class. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Maybe some people have different views of the tape. But yeah, I think that's a very good pick. And up next, we're going to have Simon with the Atlanta Falcons, but we might have a trade.
Oh, we'll definitely having a trade. I don't know a more tradable team in the top 10 than the Atlanta Falcons, to be quite honest. I think they are, the free agency they've had in the offseason, they've kind of set themselves up nicely on offense. I think they're looking defense with the first pick, and I think there's going to be certainly in a situation like this where you've got a fully quarterback. There's certainly going to be two teams at very least I think are going to be interested in this. One of them is one of my own, which is the Denver Broncos, because Sean Payton, his God complex, thinks he can get a tune out of anybody and won't mind sacrificing, the future of a franchise for the next decade if he wanted to go and get him. But I do believe there's other interest elsewhere, so I could play the field a little bit here as the Falcons. Anybody interested in moving up to 8?
Yeah, the Raiders would be willing to do battle with their division rivals for this pick in that case. I mean, it's a dream scenario, like you say, for the Falcons, really, isn't it? They have got some needs. They're not, if they can slip back, 4 or 5 spots and address them still, pick up a couple of extra picks maybe. Pretty rosy scenario for them.
For sure. Now, I'm pretty much of the opinion that this is going to cost a first-round pick, the future first-rounder, for one of these two teams to go up there. It's only for the Broncos in particular, it's only 4 spaces up, but that's not going to be the price, especially if the Raiders are interested too. I think these are two teams that are going to be very much interested in the skill set of Daniels that he offers. I don't think it's quite right that I'm trading with myself. So what is it exactly you're thinking of offering there, Wakey? Come on. Put your money where your mouth is. So, tell me.
Yeah, so there you go. So you've already kind of started me off. It's like you say, because we know, using my own logic from earlier, we know it's going to be for a quarterback at this stage. I'm trying to get up ahead of the Vikings, ahead of yourself as the Broncos as well. I'm saying that operating under the, as though I didn't hear Jack say that he's not really interested in coming up earlier on as the Vikings, as the draft would be. You've started us off, obviously, it starts with a first-round pick, doesn't it? And then we're maybe chucking a couple of extra filler bits on top from this year as well to see if they can get interested. Maybe we're talking about 44, maybe, a day 3 pick of some description.
Yeah, and obviously we're only mocking the first round this time, so getting into specifics isn't particularly necessary in this scenario because the Denver Broncos don't really have much to offer outside of next year's first, which I think is what they would have offered. So if you're offering me a first next year and some extra bonus on top, that makes up for the 1 place extra. I think the Raiders would make that jump. I think it's a ballsy move.
With a last second.
Oh no! We got here.
Third hat in the ring.
Talk to me, Jack.
I'm now walking back on what I said before. So here's the thing, right? I have real doubts about trading up here. But if you're the Vikings and there is one of those top 4, and I think all of us here probably have those guys at the top 4 or in that conversation, and we certainly all think that those are the 4 who are going to go. It's the first 4 quarterbacks. For me, I don't know. I just think you can't just let someone else get that last guy. With the way this roster's built, they need to win now. So I would offer 11 and 23 to come up to 8.
Sold to the man with 2 guitars behind his back. Thank you very much. We will take that. Falcons off the clock, Vikings on it. Make your pick, Jack. Well done, mate.
Jaden Daniels, of course. I can now atone for my mistakes, Kieran.
Quality pick, a Heisman winner.
There you go.
Absolute worldy pick. Can't complain. He should have got number 1 though, but I guess Lee, that's why you're not a GM.
Before we move on, though, Jack, how do you think Jaden Daniels fits in with Kevin O'Connell down open in Minnesota? What do you think? What do you think is like the best case and the worst case scenario on that one?
I mean, I don't love the fit, but then the question is and this is always the challenge with these guys, how much of the Jaden Daniels thing is what he was asked to do and what he can do. I have my doubts that he's like a great fit with that Kevin O'Connell system. Doesn't mean he can't. And also O'Connell might be willing to make tweaks. Again, we've seen some coaches who are like, no, this is how I run my offense. Like Sean Payton is like, no, this is what I do. And if you won't do it, then I will pay you stupid money to go play with the Steelers. So I don't know. I think it would either be brilliant or it would be a complete crash and burn. Nowhere in between.
You can't take it back, Jack, now. I've got those 2 picks. It's too late, mate. You don't sound very convinced.
I'm not. I haven't been convinced about either of my last 2 picks. I'm praying that my next one is going to be a doozy.
It'll be interesting to see what Jaden Daniels plays like when he knows he's not going to have to potentially play from behind if he doesn't score on every single drive. Like the biggest problem he had at LSU was regardless of who we were playing, as long as they were not an FCS school, he knew they were putting up 50 points a game. And I think that played into how he played and some of the irresponsible choices he made.
Yeah, I think it'd be an interesting one if this is how it all turned out, for sure.
Yeah, be good if he can be a safe pick. But yeah, I still like the pick. He's going in the first round. Can't hate on that. But next up, we're going to have Rory with the New York Jets.
Nope.
No.
The Bears.
No.
Bears now.
Commish, get off.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, watching the wrong screen. So next up, Lee's second pick for the Bears. So obviously you've taken the best quarterback off the board first. What are you going to do to support him, or are you going to go defense?
I mean, the Bears, it's an interesting one for this one. Again, as much as we're kind of offering out every pick, I think they'd be open to trading this. If anyone wants to come up, there's a couple of good tackles on the board. Obviously, the edge guys are still there. The two corners are still there. So we've still got some. Oh,
I would do the same. I would do the same trade I offered earlier for the Saints, just to get above the Jets, obviously. So it would be a second next year, and then something from later on, a 5th round pick in this year. I don't know if that's enough to do that, but they would potentially look to get above the Jets, who I'm in control of as well.
You're also picking for, scuppering yourself.
I'm looking at offensive tackle.
Such is the fallacy of the way we've done this draft, I think.
Now, I mean, to be fair, I think it adds to realism that we're all willing to screw ourselves over. And we're all unhappy with our own picks. So, no one's happy at the end of the NFL draft, are they, really? It's only in the build-ups that we're happy. It's a difficult one because I feel like, again, I understand your logic. I can see where you're coming from. I kind of want to let you have it because I do feel like they could find a way.
Just because I'm plugging away here.
I respect the persistence. Sorry. No, I just feel like Sean Payton will find a way to do this if he wants to do it. Not Sean Payton, sorry. The Saints will just find a way to do it if they want to do it. And I feel like they might not offer the same trade compensation that you're offering here, but they might get it done by some means. So for the purpose of the exercise, I'll accept the trade.
Okie doke. So in this case, I would take Olu Fashanu, plug him in there. I think a lot of the things that people have reservations about with Fashanu are probably overblown. You have to watch the majority of his tape. Yes, this guy's a young guy. There has been flashes where he looked like he was overpowered against Ohio State. Is it JT Tuimoloau who got the better of him? But he's young. He's athletic. You're going to be able to work him in there. And the Saints are desperate for something. Like I said, the Ramchick injury looks probably worse than what anybody expected. And Trevor Penning just hasn't panned out. So they're going to be desperate to find a solution for the future. And Fashanu is a good one, I think.
Yeah, I think solid pick, especially with Ramchick on his way out. But now you got your second pick in a row. You're going to be going with the Jets. But I do have unfortunate news. Aaron Rodgers' ayahuasca shaman is not in the draft pool next year. He's staying for his senior year. So with that said, I'll pass you on to the Jets pick.
Yeah. So Brock Bowers is one of the guys that has been linked heavily with the Jets recently. And I get why. I think Rodgers would enjoy that selection. But for me, I just looking at the depth chart, we have to come up with a plan for the long term. I know everything's built around Rodgers and a short-term run of the Super Bowl. But are we really thinking that Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses are going to last a season, particularly Smith? Is he going to be there for 16 plus games? Is he going to do a playoff run? I think you have to take insurance there at offensive tackle. I might be going out on a limb here. For me personally, I would take J.C. Latham from Alabama. I think the league will like him better than a lot of draftniks do. Fuaga for me is more of an interior player. I thought he struggled against speed, people going around the edge. I thought he just perhaps was a little bit sluggish. Latham, very physical, Alabama system, functionally strong. Maybe not the most exciting, but I don't think that's what the Jets need. I don't think you need to take any chances. I think just plug in a solid guy like Latham, and he doesn't have to do anything year one. Hopefully, you don't have to use him at all, and he's there to take over next year. But I think Latham will go higher than a lot of people are seeing him.
Yeah, and obviously he's an Alabama offensive tackle. We kind of know the pedigree of pretty much every guy who comes through there. That's just what they do. They build big men to go out and play in the trenches. But after the trade, that means Lee, are you up again? I forget who the Vikings trade was.
The Falcons are on the clock here.
Oh, there we go. I didn't see
After pulling off an absolute blockbuster with Brentnell earlier, and I am a bit suspicious that Brock Bowers didn't go off on the board at 10. Not for thinking for the future for the Jets, but thinking for the future for the Bengals later, perhaps, Rory. I've got my eye on you, mate.
How dare you?
I'm questioning your integrity, my friend. Falcons, though, this is ideal scenario. They drop back. They still get the pick of the defensive players on the board. They need an edge rusher, don't they? We know this. I think that's exactly what the Falcons need. I think it's a defense that outplayed itself a little bit last year, surprisingly, But I think they need more firepower. I think two very close prospects at the top of this draft. But for me, Dallas Turner edges it purely based on system, I think. Look at the 3-4 that the Falcons run. I think that's more ideal for Turner, just about. I think Verse can do both as well, don't get me wrong. But Turner, for me, has got a bit more explosion about him. Also smells a little bit like Vic Beasley every now and again, which makes me smile and obviously makes it perfect for the Falcons. But that's just a little niggle at the back of my head that. Probably more about the Falcons than it is about Dallas Turner, to be fair. So I shouldn't be too harsh. But trading down 3 spots, getting Dallas Turner and picking up another first round in the draft, I think that's an excellent haul for the Falcons. I will take in Dallas Turner. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't know if it's enough to turn their recent fortunes around, but it's definitely doing something. And then you're up again with the Broncos side.
Oh, I didn't even think about this. Right, okay. The Broncos obviously couldn't go up, so what are they going to do? They're going to go down, aren't they? Anybody interested in coming up to 12 for a corner? Anything. Give me anything to move down, because the Broncos are a hot mess right now. They've got no draft capital because they give some away to go and get a head coach. They've got no money because they give some to a quarterback to not be there. It's an absolute... And there's no talent on the roster. None. So, any offers before I make the obvious pick here? Tumbleweed, you cowards. You absolute cowards. Right, well, in that case, I think for the Broncos, and I've been on and on about this for the past week since we decided to do this little project. But I think if they take a corner, then they have at least one position group that is elite. They did so well with Patrick Surtain a couple of years ago. I think they go back to the Alabama well again. Give me Terry and Arnold cornerback, and let's have a lockdown on both sides. How do we think about that? What do we think about that, Jack?
I like Arnold. I'm a Quinion Mitchell guy.
I am. I am too.
I think, they've got that track record of, like you say, they know what they're getting from a Crimson Tide corner, and I think that might be something that plays on their mind. If he's anything like Surtain, then happy days. There'd be,
Yeah, it doesn't taste nice drafting for the Broncos, one of the team I hate the most in the league. But apart from that, I think that's an excellent pick. Over to Lee and the Raiders. I'll do your job for your commissions. You can't keep up.
I couldn't even get a word out. Bloody hell.
I'm on my second beer. What do you
want? For the Raiders, I feel like it's relatively easy, isn't it? It's an easy couple of options that they've got now that they've not got the quarterback that they tried in vain to take to move up for, which I think, just going back to the trade-off, I think that was a really good representation of what will happen on draft night. The Vikings can just sit there knowing that they've got the ammo to outbid anyone, and a team like the Falcons, as I said before, can just drive up the price, and the Vikings can just go, yeah, fine, we'll pay it, and just get their guy. So we're going to keep the run going, I think, on defensive players after it was a bit of a whitewash, wasn't it, for the first 10 picks or so. And because the Raiders really, they need a corner because they just don't have anyone who's going to play that position. So as much as there isn't a great deal between Terry Arnold and Quinyon Mitchell on a lot of people's boards, I feel like that's the way it's going to play out in our scenario here, and I'm going to go and take Quinyon for the Raiders.
God damn, I love Quinyon Mitchell. I don't want to see him in that AFC West at all.
I was going to say, I kind of... I like the Terry and Arnold pick a little bit more, I'll be honest.
Well, I think we're just looking at two elite cornerbacks here. I mean, I know obviously there's a bit more size for Quinyon. Obviously, he's on an excellent pre-draft process and his tape's flawless. I mean, considering you're coming out the MAC and you have that tape, and there's going to be some question marks about playing for a group of 5 rather than a power 5, and then you absolutely double down at the Senior Bowl, you kill it throughout the testing. I mean, there's no questions left, is there? So, I mean, even for Mitchell to be mentioned in the same breath as like an elite Alabama player is amazing. I mean, at this stage, you're looking at length, you're looking at height, you're looking at scheme. You know, and you're looking at, like Brad Jack said, track record with the Broncos, which made me go for Arnold first. There's that little bit of pedigree that might tip someone's hand, but these guys, they are neck and neck in this position, and it's a drop off from here. It is. I mean, and we're still some elite cornerbacks that can go in the first round, but these two are ridiculously good. I love them.
I think you're just being racist towards Cooper DeJean, but it is what it is at this point.
Yeah,
and no one's going to draft a white guy at corner.
It makes a lot of sense as well, doesn't it? Like you say, AFC West there, Mahomes and Herbert, they're the two quarterbacks that these guys have to go back against. If you can't get a quarterback yourself, you're going to look at a way to defend against the 2 elite quarterbacks in your division.
Well said, mate.
Do you have concerns about like the tape being in the MAC, or do you think that he's shown enough that it's going to translate?
I think a lot of his skills are translatable, and I feel like the Senior Bowl weekend kind of, sorted that out for everyone. He went up against elite competition. As much as it's a small sample size, he showed that he can play. It's like that tape just translated to that weekend, and you can see that he's able to make that step up and again to the NFL, in my opinion. Sorry to whoever I cut off just as I was starting that then.
That's all right.
Because that was my biggest knock.
Kieran, you should be ashamed of yourself. You live in Mac Country, mate. What are you doing? Like, you're disgracing this quality conference, who I think the last time a player came out of the MAC in the first round, I think, was Khalil Mack 10 years ago. Yeah. And he's done all right, hasn't he? So, yeah.
And I was just thinking, like, they're different players, but the last time, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we had a group of 5 corner go, certainly in the top half of the first round, would have been Sauce Gardner.
Very good.
Yeah. And, like, they're different style of players, right? They are different style of players. But I think he's kind of battered away some of that level of competition concerns. So, yeah, I like this.
Yeah. I was going to say, he's group of 5, but there's definitely a little bit of a gap in terms of Cincinnati and Toledo. That was pretty much my only big knock on him, though, going into the draft, was what is the level of competition? Is that really some? But like everyone has said, you can see there's some translatable skills there on tape. So I was basically just trying to badger you to see if I could get you to be like, well, maybe. But it's going to be back to Lee with the Bears after he traded with the Saints.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's an elephant in the room on the draft board. There's one player standing out who really, is better than this draft position. And, we're flipping it back over to offense. I'm sure there's a couple of candidates. I'm looking at the GM of the Bengals in particular for this one.
He's asleep.
Would you be open?
They just won't. For the sake of realism, the Bengals
just won't do it.
I'm afraid. No.
Oh, just go up and get Murphy. I want to be happy.
Nice try, though, Lee. Are you trying to trade all the way down to day 3 here? What's going on?
I mean, Ryan Poles has shown that he wants to accumulate draft capital, isn't he? I mean, he's got to, recoup some of the trades that he's made for veterans, with Montez Sweat, Keenan Allen, etc. And he's kind of worked the phones, worked the deals, could need to recoup some of that draft capital, as mentioned. I mean, I'm happy to make a pick, but Brock Bowers is there, guys, and he's better than the 15th best player in the draft.
I'm just wondering if I have anyone who would come up for that. I don't think I do, personally. I don't think I've got a team.
I'm begging Duke Tobin to come up. I'm begging.
So
Do you think, Kieran? Do you think that would be something to be interested in, or is there just too many good players still on the board at this point?
I think, given that there's been just the players that have gone, I don't think they would at this point. I've got my fingers and toes crossed that Duke Tobin I want him to go up and get someone for the interior of the defensive line. So it's not realistic at all, just given the Bengals' philosophy and how they draft and how they're just very, very safe. But I just really wanted it to happen.
I mean, given the way the board's fallen and with the teams between now and then, I don't know if you need to move up for an interior defensive lineman, to be honest with you. But I'm not a Bengals fan after all. I mean, one of the motivations for doing this trade earlier with Rory to get back to 14 in particular and ahead of the Colts was the fact that Brock Bowers might be there. So as much as I'm advertising, to the Bengals and anyone else who might be interested in Brock Bowers, as much as I adore the guy, Keenan Allen being a slot receiver for the Bears doesn't preclude me from taking Brock Bowers here for the Bears long term, which is, unless I get a serious trade offer right now, is what I'm going to do, to be honest.
This is really interesting, because we talk about Brock Bowers a little bit, and he's not your standard tight end, so to speak, is he? He's kind of a guy you want to get the ball in his hand. I won't go as far as saying manufactured touches, but with ball in his hand, he's dangerous, isn't he? He's totally different.
Absolutely.
He's totally different to a Cole Kmet, for instance. Absolutely different. I mean, I can think of a million ways to put both of those people in the field. And let's be honest, who's going to cry if Cole Kmet's not on the field when you've got Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Brock Bowers catching passes? This is really interesting. This is something I wouldn't have seen coming, but I quite like it.
I think it's one of those, isn't it? I mean, you look how Houston are able to push their chips into the middle of the table now because they know that CJ Stroud's the guy. The moves that they've made in the past few months, and I think, well, you've got the number one overall pick. You've got to put the support system around him, do what the Carolina Panthers didn't do, and to your peril. And you've got Keenan Allen, you've got DJ Moore that you've sort of moved in the past 12 months. Why not go the whole hog? You've got a decent offensive line. You've brought in some people who can run the ball, as much as that's not, the most important thing to anyone. And, I think they were a little bit better than what they actually turned out to be in some respects last year. So, let's supercharge the offense. And like I say, you've got a short, medium, and long-term plans as pass catchers now. If I'm going to go ahead and take Brock Bowers, which by the sounds of it, I am. So, let's lock that one in. And, let's say Brock Bowers is now a Chicago Bear along with Caleb Williams. And again, a little bit like Malik Neighbors going to Herbert, it's a start of a good relationship.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid pick. I mean, that's the thing as well. A lot of teams now, especially, we saw it with the Bears for a couple years with Justin Fields, they just don't put a team around guys. They just, even though they've been around football their whole lives and they know that's not how it works, they just expect a quarterback to go out and win, even if he's, throwing passes to some kid they've just dragged out of Walmart. So it's actually good to see a GM supporting his quarterback, because that doesn't happen all that often. But we move to pick 15. Jack, you're up with the Colts.
Yeah, and I think I would have liked Bowers, but I don't think, by the sounds of the way Lee was talking, it didn't sound like, I don't know, thinking about it, would the Bears move down in that spot? Who would they be getting? And I think as well with the Colts, there's holes in enough places that I don't think they're the kind of team to be aggressive, even though it's only one spot. I think there isn't a pass catcher that I'd want to take at this spot, which makes me think the other then obvious need is defense and corner in particular. I've said this before and I will say it again. I think Cooper DeJean is a great fit here for what they do on defense. That kind of Gus Bradley, Seattle cover 3 system is where I think he will thrive best. I don't think he's a man-heavy guy. I think he's just a really solid cover 3 guy who can probably give you versatility across the secondary, even though they've got Kenny Moore in the slot. But I think, I'd lock him in there. Their corner depth is dire. So take a guy you feel very comfortable is going to be a success at the next level. So I would go with Cooper DeJean here.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal athlete, and he's actually one of the big things. He's very functionally strong. loves to get in, put some contact on people, which, as we know, is probably one of the most important aspects for a corner because a lot of them are a little bit gun shy and don't want to really lay some hits on anyone. So yeah, that's a good pick there. And you successfully ended racism because we now have a corner for the race bowl that Will Compton set up. We won't have Christian McCaffrey playing 2 ways. So that's awesome. Thank you for that. And then the next, you're looking perplexed, Simon. I'm guessing you haven't heard the Will Compton podcast.
No, I have heard the Will Compton podcast. I just thought I was the only one who was drinking on this podcast. To be honest. I actually think Cooper DeJean is a really interesting kind of like case because I think you get past the Colts and then there's a bit of a step until I see a team that I like for him. I mean, I think obviously a lot of people mock him to the Packers, and I've got the Lions, and the Lions played 70% in man coverage last year under Aaron Glenn. I thought I could try and gazump the Packers later on in the draft and try and get him there, but I can't. I don't know how many landing spots there are between the Colts and maybe the back end of this first round. So it's going to be really interesting. Obviously, you know, I love him. I love watching it. He's just such a fun watch, isn't he? I think so. I can kind of hope he doesn't slip. But that's a great pick.
You really see that track athleticism on display when he's playing. And I actually agree with what Lee said. So you could even, you know, have him play some snaps at corner. He's going to be able to fill in fairly well there. Like we said, willing tackler, great functional strength. You're going to be able to move him around a little bit. So I don't think you're just getting a corner. When you draft him, you're getting an all-purpose DB. And I think that makes maybe like Dax Hill, but a little bit better because, you know, he's been up and down. But next pick is pick 16. And if the rumors are true about their new uniforms, I'm going to have them as a Super Bowl favorite, and that's the Seattle Seahawks.
I have heard no such rumors about uniforms, and even if I did, there would not be no Seattle Super Bowl favorites going on. I'll tell you that right now. That being said, interested, isn't he? Mike McDonald over there now. And we all saw what he did with Justin Madubuike in a 4-3 system. If he brings that over to Seattle, I think he's going to look for a similar guy. And I took a bit of time thinking about what the Seahawks would like, but I just want to see him in that defense. To be quite frank, up front with Leonard Williams, you know, and Draymond Jones. Give me Byron Murphy, the big Texas boy. I think that is a absolute perfect fit for me. That, you know, every year you get some kind of like marriages, don't you, in the draft? You just like where he slots in. This year, Joe Alt, Tennessee, I love it. You know. Byron Murphy in Seattle, yes, please. No, I'm not saying no trade offers there. That is straight in.
Yeah, that's why I wanted
man of culture, Si.
Hey,
you're a man
that's
of culture.
Why I wanted.
I know.
That's why I wanted Rory to move up for Byron Murphy specifically. Absolute great pick. He's a monster. That guy. He's going to be a very, very good defensive tackle, I think, for probably a good amount of years to come. So that's a very good pick up there for Seattle.
Well, just looking at the 2024 touchdown NFL draft guide, which I don't know if anyone knows about, but it's only £3. It's absolute steal for 370 pages of content. But Byron Murphy's getting a 9.19 RAS score. He's a first-round pick. And according to whoever wrote this report, he could play anywhere between the 0 and the 4 tech. Now, I like him best as a 3 tech personally. But yeah, there's extra versatility for the Seahawks there too.
Yeah, he will definitely get moved around. Like, he can do a lot, and he's so powerful. We saw in the Alabama tape this year, 3 guys on him, and he's still managing to pressure Jaden Milroe. So, and against an offensive line that good, that is very, very impressive. But next up, I'm surprised you're not drafting for them side, but we've got Lee with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for the Jags. I feel like they've got a couple of big areas of need. One of which I think is corner. I think they have a really good corner in Tyson Campbell, and they signed Ronald Darby, but I don't feel that precludes you from drafting someone in the first round. However, we do need to protect Trevor Lawrence at some point as well, and you know it's just not quite worked out. They seem to have invested some resources into protecting Trevor Lawrence. You know, they got Anton Harrison last year. They signed Ezra Cleveland to an absurd deal this offseason. You know, they've made some moves. You know, Cyrus O'Torrance, whatever his name is, Florida guard in recent times. It's always been a weird name, that, isn't it? But you know, they have to you know put a plan in place that means that Trevor Lawrence is able to flourish to his fullest. You know, and we all watched him at Clemson this amazing prospect that's coming out. He's not quite hit those heights. So I'm kind of torn between these two. And then obviously, third sneaky need is wide receiver, because he does need someone to pass the ball to now that Calvin Ridley's not there. And looking at the wide receiver options for the Jags, it doesn't exactly fill me with a great deal of confidence. Gabe Davis coming over, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk being E3 primary options, and Evan Ingram basically being another wide receiver. So yeah, I've got options on the table, but I'm just choosing which way to go. Hence this long intro to the pick, because I'm really undecided on what I want to do. So I guess
just like Trent Baalke.
Got to do in this situation. I don't know who's more competent, to be honest. Well, I guess it's just defer to your board in the fact that who's the best player on my board between the best three players of those positions. And for me, it'd be Talise Fuaga, because we've got the three better corners off the board at this point, and Lord knows I'm not a Brian Thomas fan at wide receiver, and it's a little bit too early for the other wide receivers on the board. So as much as you've got Anton Harrison that can switch over, it's a bit of a movement, moving around on the offensive line. I think Fuaga makes the best sense for me, and I think, as unconfidently as I sound about it, I'm going to lock that in as my pick of Oregon State. As much as you might move him into guard in year one, he might play tackle for you later down the line. It's just about getting your best five on the field for the Jags, and like I said, protecting Trevor Lawrence, to be honest with you. So yeah, I'm going to lock that in. It's not a pick that I feel wonderful about, but I feel it's a pick that maybe I'm feeling like that because I had so many options on the table and I wasn't nailed to one.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good pick. It's very smart for the Jags to keep Trevor Lawrence upright. Not sure about how I feel about him. He's definitely a good quarterback, but it's the supporting cast that I'm definitely worried about, especially at receiver. How do you feel about the pick side, being a Jags fan, though?
I'm not a Jags fan, Kieran, just to correct you there.
You're not?
I know I'm a Chargers fan, just to let you know. But I do write for the Jaguars. And
that's it.
Offensive tackle is, I would say it's a mid-need. They've done a little bit in free agency, Jaguars, to kind of open it up a little bit. But the truth is, they're desperate at corner. They really stung when they missed out on Ridley at wide receiver. But this is a tricky draft spot. It's part of the reason why I didn't want to pick up for him, to be honest. Because not only is it tricky, but I don't see any teams around them that you're desperate to get above for a trade market either. So either the Jags cash in, move up and get a real elite piece, get one of those cornerbacks we've talked about so far, or they try and move back, get Brian Thomas a bit later. But it's not going to be easy. So yeah, they might just stick to the. I like the idea of them sticking to the board. They have put some money into that offensive line, but it's one position you can throw money at, and it's worth it. You can keep going every year. A few teams have taught us that in the past. I think that's a good pick there.
Yeah, I think it definitely would have been the wrong move to go Brian Thomas. Way too early for him to be going. I think you don't really want to be thinking about him until like 25, maybe even later than that.
Poor pedigree.
We'll not go there. Pedigree's a type of dog food. We'll just leave it at that for now. But next pickup, Super Bowl champions for this year. Who are you picking, Rory?
I think this is played quite nicely for the Bengals. I think they'd be quite happy, and I think that's part of the reason why they won't be one of the teams that will be thinking about moving up, really. I think there's a lot of options there. They need offensive tackle, obviously. They've got Trent Brown, Orlando Brown, not long-term in terms of Trent Brown, and also issues with injuries have come up in the past. So they're going to look for insurance at that spot. Equally, like we said earlier, the Byron Murphy, he would have been sort of a slam dunk pick here. They are looking for somebody on the interior. And also, there's other needs there. There's wide receiver. T. Higgins not going to be there after this year. And cornerback is a sneaky one. They've got DJ Turner, obviously young, took his lumps in the back end. It started off really well last season, took his lumps at the back end. So there's plenty of choice there. It's tricky. I really like Fautanu out of Washington, but I don't think he's going to be the Bengals type of player there. I don't think they'll see him as an outside guy. Amarius Mims is another one. His size, but it's just the fact that I'm not sure there's enough on tape to make a decision about him. How he's sure, it's all a bit of a projection. So I'm going to go with the guy that I consider the safest and at a position of need, and that's Jerzan Newton. So Johnny Newton, defensive tackle. He's not ideal because obviously I see him more as a 3 technique, and that they really could do with somebody that's going to plug the middle, which is why Murphy's flexibility would have been preferential. But I just think you've got Sheldon Rankins, BJ Hill, and I think if you get Newton in there, it solidifies the front and it gives them options. It gives them a rotation. You can find a bigger guy that's going to do the early downs later in the draft, but let's plug in a real playmaker. I love Newton. I know that people are getting a bit lukewarm on him, but I think some of the flash plays are unbelievable, the power and the strength. So I'd be quite happy with that pick.
Yeah, I think that's probably who I would have gone with as well, especially with Murphy off the board. I think that's the biggest need for the Bengals right now, specifically, as the defense was a little bit, especially with now DJ Reader gone. He was the guy who could kind of do that, but we just need a big, strong guy who we can get in the interior, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So next, we're going to go to the Rams. Quiet team last year, but obviously still fantastically coached. And that's Jack. Who are you going to go for the Rams, mate?
So I think on this one, they need pass rush help. It's a tricky one. There's a couple of guys I like, but I'm just going to stick true to my board, and I'm going to go with Leatu Latu from UCLA.
Nice.
I'll be interested to see where it actually goes on draft night, because there are obviously quite serious kind of medical history things there in terms of, being forced into medical retirement when he was with Washington. But his tape over the last couple of years has been amazing. I think he was second in the country in pressures last year and second the year before. Last year, which was, bear in mind, I think it was his first full season, certainly his first season back since the medical retirement. He had the same number of pressures as Will Anderson in his last year at Alabama. So this is a guy who's been consistently productive at the college level. He's not an elite athlete, so there may be some concerns about whether he's maxed out in terms of the fact that he's a pure technician, but he just has the kind of game that translates. It's not, you don't see many guys who are super technicians as pass rushers just completely fail as first round picks. When you look at the first round picks that have failed as edge players, they're the kind of toolsy guys who've never quite put it together in college. So I think he'd be a really smart addition to a line that needs a lot of help in the pass rushing department. So he would be my pick here.
Yeah, good pick. Obviously, medical history doesn't always necessarily denote something poor for a player. Obviously, Jalen Phillips, a guy who was at UCLA, obviously he had very similar issues in the fact that he was medically ruled out, medically retired from football, and then came back and become a first-round draft pick. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, and I actually don't think it's a bad pick. I think he's a very, very good player. But up next, I'm just finding it on the list. Simon's going to pick a player to haunt my dreams with, I assume, with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I'm not sure what that means. I quite like that pick, Jack. I think it's becoming quite a popular pick, isn't it? Obviously UCLA, LA link. Obviously they're very, very fond of it. It's weird to see Jared Verse slipping down the draft a little bit. I know obviously he's got lovers and he's got haters, but I think he probably goes a little bit earlier than this. I think there's a few names here that are getting a bit of pop late in the draft process, as there always is, that might go before we take him, because we don't kind of fall for that short-term thinking on there in the touchdown. But Steelers, they're desperate on offensive line, aren't they? Absolutely desperate. I could pick any one position, of course, that line, apart from maybe right tackle, and I think Broderick Jones moves to the left-hand side this time, which makes this pick pretty easy for me, because at the guys left, there's one tackle on that list, tackle stroke guard, I suppose you could say, that kind of suggests it's AFC North football. That is Troy Fautanu. He is just utterly gritty. I mean, sometimes there's no technique whatsoever, but forget that. He's just gonna win by any means necessary. And I think he can, obviously, if they do kick Broderick over to the left, he can play right. If he's not ready for the right, he can play inside. They need people in guard anyway. I think Dan Moore's a versatile piece. They can move a little bit as well in that line. Steelers just need to be smart here. I think they are struggling a little bit in terms of that division, but always in with a shout and just build that offensive line. Give Russell Wilson at least a little bit of chance to be the Russell Wilson we remember. Or maybe we don't remember anymore. I don't know. But I think offensive line is pretty dire for the Steelers. I think it's an obvious pick. Give me Troy Fautanu.
Yeah, I was slightly worried that you might have gone defense and just have someone to absolutely obliterate Joe Burrow every single game. But
you got one of those.
Yeah, no, I do not like. Seems like a nice guy. Scares the shit out of me when I watch him play football, especially with a quarterback who gets hurt as often as Joe Burrow. But next up, we've got Lee picking with the Miami Dolphins. And where are you going to go for the Dolphins? More speed?
Yeah. It's not out of the question, but I mean, one thing is key for the Dolphins, isn't it, moving forward? And as much as it'll be hilarious when they sign that contract, they do need to keep Tua upright, and they need to keep Tua, on the field, passing footballs to the fastest people on this field. And to do that, they need a defensive line. They've took a massive hit on offensive line this offseason, and it's just not looking very strong at the moment, is it? They've got Teron Armstead, who barely stays on the field. They signed Aaron Brewer, who to me is a pretty average to above average center to a 3-year contract. Robert Jones, Isaiah Wynn, and Austin Jackson, again, are not players that get your heart racing on the offensive line. And then you've got a quarterback who gets injured, concussion fairly frequently and has suffered with that throughout his NFL career so far. And like I said, they're pretty much backing themselves into a corner and into signing to a quite sizable Daniel Jones-esque deal, if not a larger one than that. So again, kind of same logic as what I was kind of going along with the Jags pick is I've got to go offensive line here really, and there's a player that I find really intriguing for pretty much any team that needs offensive line help really, because when we've been doing the Go for Two pod with our friend Liam, I called Graham Barton a skeleton key for defensive line because I think he has true four position versatility. Sorry, when I can speak, all the way from left guard to right tackle. I know he's played left tackle at Duke just now on the previous season. I don't think his long-term future is there, but I do feel like he can play any of the spots. And like I said before, because Miami have such a need, all the way through the defensive line pretty much, then you can kind of again get your best 5 out there. Graham Barton's going to be there for a very long time, playing pretty much any spot that he likes, and just allow them to do that, and hopefully for their sake keep Tua upright and the wheels turning on that offense.
Yeah, solid pick. A lot of offensive line talent coming out this round. I think we was pretty deep draft in terms of offensive line, so it's good to see them all flying out in the first round. Nobody's really been wasted here. But we're going to take it over to Philadelphia now with Rory. Who are you going to help or hurt Jalen Hurts with?
Now, I'm not sure how acceptable it is.
He's trading with himself here.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'll be honest. Simon can see right through it.
He's seething about Brock Bowers, and he's still, he's got to do something.
I'm just doing what I want down here now. I've got a few guys that can just move around, chess pieces. It's going to go a bit weird, but I do have some logic. So if you're happy for me to roll with it, unless anybody else has a trade offer. To me, as the Eagles, I think there's a few guys on the board that make sense, and always in that situation, why not get a little bit of draft capital, move back, and still get one of the guys that you're interested in. So for me, I'm in control of the Buffalo Bills as well. And it makes a little bit of sense for the Eagles, because if they allow the Bills to come up, and you guys can adjudicate whether you think this is fair compensation, but I would give that second rounder that the Bills have and a 4th rounder.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, we are comfortable with that 4th or 5th rounder. Move up.
Trying to make it cheaper now that we've all said it's agreeable.
The speed at which Simon said yes, I thought I just push that back to the but yeah, I think if the Eagles let them come up, it jumps them over the Cowboys, and it allows the Bills to get the 4th wide receiver on the board, Brian Thomas. For me, he's clearly the 4th guy. He's not in the same realm as the top 3 guys, but I think he's clearly the next best, and he has the least question marks once you start getting into A.D. Mitchell and guys like that. Troy Franklin, I think he's above that level. The Bills, desperate, obviously. They've lost Diggs. They've lost Gabriel Davis. They need a solution at wide receiver. They've got a lot of holes elsewhere, but I think you don't want to leave Josh Allen without a serious receiver on the outside. Thomas is a deep threat. Plug him in there. Eagles get some extra picks, and they also stop the Cowboys from getting the receiver. Whether that's where the Cowboys are going or not, it makes sense to me. So if you can make that work, that's where we're going.
Do you have any concerns about Brian Thomas's lack of versatility? Because he can basically run one direction.
I do, but he's so explosive. I think you can. I think you can teach the rest of it. He's so explosive. He's such a deep threat, and if you pair that with Allen's arm strength, that is a serious combination that could work. I know it's not perfect, but I just think once you get into this territory and you're looking at the receivers that are left on the board, there's question marks about all of them, but nobody has that high-end ability to do what Thomas does. To that level, to be a deep threat to that level.
I think he reminds me a bit of DK Metcalf, and I don't think he's quite as big, but I think he's got that kind of like ability to, like you say, obviously not the most versatile player in the world, but still offers a very, very much a first round worthy kind of like CV for a team to use, a skill set for a team to use. And if you've got the quarterback and put the ball down the field to him, I think it's a good match. I like it. I like it, Rory. I'll let you off with this. This is all right. It makes sense.
I did say on 50-50 balls, he basically makes it 70-30. He's an absolute animal when you put him up there to go get those balls. But little bit concerned about the measurables after LSU gave him a little bit, few extra pounds, few extra inches, but obviously on the field he looked fine, so he definitely passes the eye test in that regard. But after the earlier trade, we're going to have Simon up next.
Yeah, we do, mate. Do you remember? No, he doesn't.
With
the Atlanta Falcons, but great news for you, Kieran, is that the Atlanta Falcons have already, behind the scenes, have been working the phones, haven't we? I think this might be a bit of a luxury trade, but we've been on the phone to the San Francisco 49ers GM, and Lee Wakefield has kindly taken this pick off my hands for none other than Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver, now for the Atlanta Falcons. So now we've got Ayuk to join Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Rondale Moore, and Kyle Pitts. If Kirk Cousins can't do with that, then I don't know what he can do with. This NFC South is awful. That team is far too good. They should absolutely care. It should be double-digit wins. It should be playoffs, and it should be a good push here. Now, I think the Falcons, that's just finishes off offense for them. I'm having that. And over to you, Lee. Well done, mate. Have another pick, mate.
Yeah, it's a good trade. I mean, I think this is really interesting because I think we were talking about this earlier on today when you were kind of putting this one towards me. I feel this is very realistic. I think this is very AJ Brown like. We saw quite a few wide receivers been trailing on draft night in recent times, and for all the draft content that I listen to and watch, I've never actually seen this one in a mock draft, but it just sticks out like a sore thumb as something that could absolutely happen in a couple of weeks' time when it all comes down. The 49ers, by the sounds of it, don't want to pay Brandon Ayuk, which is kind of mad considering he's absolutely a top 10 wide receiver. Some might say a top 5 wide receiver in the league, which is, why he's elicited a first-round pick out of, in this trade. So, with that, the 49ers obviously have now 2 picks, 23 and 31. Now, what do? They replace Brandon Ayuk with a cheaper version immediately? Of course they don't. They're San Francisco. They're going to take a defensive lineman. And when we all saw the invites for the draft as they were released, there was one name that stuck out. One game who is very much a my guy, and that's Darius Robinson from Missouri, who I think would be an absolutely brilliant San Francisco 49er. I feel like he is just born to be in, red and gold. So, I'm going to go for that. And I feel like, his versatility on the defensive line, his length, his athleticism, his ceiling, and there's a reason why he's been invited to the first round. I don't think they've Will Levised him. So, lock him in. And, we might just stick with wide receiver later on, or we might not.
Just a quick question on this, Lee. Were you worried that Darius Robinson won't make it to 31?
A little bit, yeah, because there's a couple of teams in the late 20s that I feel could be very, very interested in him, which is kind of why, or one of the reasons why I've done it this way around.
He really is flying up draft boards. It won't surprise me if he got there. I like it. Thanks
much
for
as you know,
branding out, though. Appreciate it, mate. Cheers.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure Kyle Shanahan will be able to scheme open some other wide receiver that we get later on in maybe like day 3 or something like that.
All right. Well,
but,
would you like Daryl Hodge then? Scheme that open.
Chuck him in as a make weight.
Austin Mack.
No, we'll see. No, but I just wanted to kind of bring up the fact that we talked about Chop Robinson earlier on before we got on. I like Darius Robinson a lot more, even though it's my edge 6 versus Chop's edge 4. But like I say, that's why we use numerical scales and do what we do. But yeah, it's a pick that I really like I say. So yeah, willing to hand that over, and we'll see what we do at 31 with the Niners.
So, Si, you're up now with the Cowboys. Can you get inside the mind of an insane megalomaniac in Jerry Jones?
No, I can't. No, the Cowboys, they've been an absolute dog's dinner of it, haven't they? Let's be honest. They're having to start selling off to China now. This team got holes everywhere. Like you mentioned, wide receiver now obviously could be a little bit of a need. This pick is very much open for trading back. I don't know if it's something the Cowboys would do, but if they're smart, they should do. I would definitely trade this back. And I've got a trade partner myself unless somebody else wants to come in first. So if anybody wants to move up to 24, throw your hat in the ring now. Tumbleweed once again. Okay. I'm going to take... I've got a couple of teams who could do this. This is interesting. Give me... I'll do the one I think is more realistic. The Arizona Cardinals, they've got a bit more draft capital. We'll move them up from 27 to 24 and switch with the Cowboys, essentially. Just take your pick what they want. I don't know, 3rd round pick or something, 4th round pick in the later rounds. They've got plenty of capital to give up for this. It won't be a problem at all. It's only a 4-step-up move. But what it does do is it gets them above the Packers. It gets them above the Buccaneers. Both those teams might be looking for cornerback help. And what that means is with a couple more first-round quarterbacks on the board, it gives them the pick. Now, for the Cardinals, traditionally, they've not been particularly concerned about size at cornerback. I think that changes a little bit now. I think, obviously, traditionally, I think they've just brought in Sean Murphy-Bunting for one side. Is he really locked down? I don't know. I'd probably call him a nickel cornerback, to be honest, but someone with length, someone with size, and someone with ball skills is Nate Wiggins. And I think at this stage, it's probably worthwhile taking a punt for. There is Curly McKinstry's there too. And now he's undersized and he's probably more traditionally what the Cardinals look for. But it's about time they got on the bandwagon. The NFL is about length and size on the outside now. It's about press man coverage. It's about being able to do different things in your secondary. Cardinals step up, throw a 3rd round pick to the Cowboys and take Nate Wiggins, quarterback from Clemson.
I was about to say the only question I really had was size, but you pretty much addressed that, so that makes that a little bit easier. What do you like about Nate Wiggins?
A few things. I think in a draft where I won't say it's questionable size and length, but I think he is the standout in terms of length and height, which is a very interesting thing. I know, and in that division in particular, we've seen it, particularly with the Seahawks. They've gone for that and they've had success with it. Obviously, I don't think they really got to address that secondary very well in Arizona last year. And I think, with John Gannon there now, I think it's probably going to be a position where they're going to try and focus on a little bit more. I like Kool-Aid McKinstry. I do. I really like him. He's a smart cornerback, but I don't think he has the ceiling of what Nate Wiggins is, just purely based on size, based on length, and based on. I think he's probably a bit more physical too. Nate Wiggins. Give me Wiggins here.
Yeah, no, smart pick. Next up, we got Jack with the Green Bay Packers. What are you going to do for Jordan Love? If you draft a 1st-round receiver, this will be absolutely hilarious, given what Aaron Rodgers went through.
What I'm going to do is trade back, which might not be the most immediately appealing option for Packers fans, but I think with the way the board's fallen, I'd be comfortable with it here. And in the spirit of trading with yourself, I am going to have the Ravens trading up from 30 to 25. Again, compensation, make it what you like. If you look at the kind of picks we're talking here, you'd say 25 to 30 and maybe 113, which is Denver's pick. I'd be happy with that as the Packers. It may be something a little bit richer, but it certainly won't be less. From my perspective, the Bucs are on the clock at 26, and if I'm the Ravens, I'm looking at this going, there is an edge there that the Bucks are going to take if he's still on the board. And he's the last of what I see as those kind of blue chip. Well, they're not blue chip, but that kind of top tier of edges. And it's a new defense there in terms of, well, certainly new DC. So I would want to give him some more help. So I would take Florida State's Jared Verse and be very happy with my pick if I was the Ravens here.
Yeah, I really like that pick as well. Like I said, absolutely terrified me for about 2 years having to watch him come in and destroy an O-line every single week 0. What's your biggest pluses on Jared Verse, and does anyone else really like the pick?
Just power. He's just a big guy. He's just fun to watch. Do you know what I mean? Like there's I like a bendy pass rusher, like a Chop Robinson type. But there's just something about those just big, strong edges who just bully people, and I think he'll do that at the NFL level.
This is such a Ravens pick as well.
I was going to say nice.
Do you know how bullshit it is though for him to go to play in LSU twice in a year to now having to come play the Bengals? What's going on? Why are people doing this to me?
Thing is, as well, this is the annual. We can't let the Ravens get away with this pick. This is the it's either that or Philly. Like it's those two where we just every fan of any other team just sits there and goes, this isn't fair. This shouldn't be allowed. So there you go.
So maybe having the pick stolen from underneath you, Lee. What are Tampa Bay doing?
Yeah, I did have the picks stolen away from me because I was, looking at myself with the Bucks coming on up, in a few picks time, and then 1 pick time and things like. I was kind of thinking, yeah, I'm definitely going to take Jared Verse. However, as much as that's a smart trade up from Jack to get ahead of the Bucks, absolutely the right thing to do. I was content enough to just let it happen. If it fell, it fell. I'm not going to trade up the world for Jared Verse, because as much as I like him as a player, I think I've said it elsewhere, I don't see him as a huge difference maker. I see him as a number 2 pass rusher, and that's what the Ravens need. They just have like a group of them, don't they? Pocket pushers, big, strong guys, exactly all the things that we just kind of agreed on, and there are 2 needs for the Bucs really that they really need to hit early on, in my opinion, which is edge, which we've kind of talked about, and also corner as well. And I'm more than happy to take Kool-Aid McKinstry. I don't think that's a bad consolation prize at all for missing out on an edge, because I think Kool-Aid McKinstry is essentially exactly the same thing. He's a high floor number 2 corner who will be good for a long time. You're buying from the name brand Alabama corners. Nick Saban coaching. I'm happy to lock that in there for the Bucs at what pick we on now? 26.
Yeah, like that pick as well. Kool-Aid, very good guy. And like you said, you know what you get. And when you get a corner from Alabama, the pedigree is absolutely ridiculous. We see pretty much every corner they put in the NFL being pretty solid, especially guys like Patrick Surtain, who are at the top of their field. So yeah, really like that pick. But next up, we got a man who traded with himself, Sai.
Cowboys back on the clock. Already mentioned just how much of a mess this team is, but biggest need isn't wide receiver, it's offensive line. I mean, this is a team that used to be known for its offensive line for years and years and years, and they just like talent get out the door quite simply. And this off season, despite his injury problems, Tyron Smith's gone, which means Tyler Smith's moving to left tackle, doesn't it? And the biggest concern, and they've also lost Tyler Beardash as well at centre too. So you're looking for someone with interior versatility. There's only really one guy there that can be taken for the Cowboys, and they've got a bit of a track record of doing this, picking interior offensive linemen late in the first round, and always been successful with it. But Jackson Powers Johnson, Oregon boy, Lee'll be happy. One Oregon guy at least coming off the board in the first round. Although you never know. Bo Nix yet, who knows? But yeah, for Dallas, I think it's just common sense, isn't it? What else are they going to take at this stage? Jackson Powers Johnson. Sorry, give me him. Give the star in his helmet. Job done.
You're gonna have him at what, left or right guard?
Oh, who cares? Like, you could put him literally anywhere. Can I? To be honest,
I was going to say he goes anywhere in the interior, even
center.
Put him
at center. Put him at center immediately because they've got an undrafted free agent rookie starting there now. it's a crisis situation on the interior for that team. I mean, everyone's worried about how they're going to run the football. They've got to find a running back yet to do that. But first and foremost, let's have some people up front to stop this. Yeah, get him just put him at centre straight away. Don't mess around. 15-year starter, game over.
Yeah, love that. Anyway, another guy who traded with himself, Rory. You're up next with the Eagles.
Things were getting a little bit sketchy then. I was a bit worried what Si was going to do, because the whole reason I traded back was for a couple of guys. Luckily, one of them's still on there. I think the Eagles are going to be looking at cornerback, because I would not really want to enter the season with James Bradbury and Darius Slayes, your two main corners. There's a bit too much age there for my liking. However, McKinstry went, which was the guy that I had targeted, and then I was sure that this guy was going to be the pick for the Cowboys. So I'm quite happy that I'm there to pick Amarius Mims. We're going to take an insurance policy there on Lane Johnson. He's 33 now, so we've got somebody ready to take over from him. And I think matching Mims with Jeff Stoutland, the offensive line coach there, is going to be awesome for him, because what we've got is an inexperienced guy that flashes amazing potential. He could be the best defensive tackle in this group on the flashes that we've got. We just haven't got enough to go off. Was it like eight starts or something like that? And I think I saw that there wasn't. I don't think he'd done over 50 snaps in a game. But I think learning behind Lane Johnson from Stoutland, that's a great match. And it's the kind of Eagles move where you think, oh, do they really need somebody at tackle? But they just do it. They do it because he's the best guy on their board. It gives them some insurance, and it's another piece for the future. And you've got to protect Hurts, haven't you? So.
And you cannot teach 6'8", 360 or whatever he weighs in at. He's an absolute behemoth of a man. Absolutely scary as hell. Yeah, like I said, when we did the offensive line podcast, basically reminds me of the guy Cleveland drafted, just an absolute unit. Like, even if he's not there technically, with time that'll come, and you can't teach the size he's got. So I think that's a really good pick as well. Now we're going to probably one of the most interesting teams in the league right now, given how they kind of had a big come up last year. Not that it was entirely unexpected, but it made Jared Goff look like one of the stronger quarterbacks in the league. Detroit Lions, over to you, Simon.
This is an interesting pick. I sat studying and didn't trade up with the Cowboys when I could have done, I suppose, and gave that little benefit to the Cardinals, maybe. Interestingly, now we're just ahead of the Packers, which is what I thought I might have to do to get what I wanted. The cornerback's off the board. They've got need at edge, but for me, and I don't know what you guys think about this guy, but like, he's an ascending prospect. He's someone who's starting to get a little bit of buzz. He might even break the top 20. How often do you find 6'8" tackles, 322 pounds? You know, you've got a guy starting at left tackle for you called Taylor Decker, who's been there since 2016. Age is getting on you. You've got a team that's ready to win now. You're in the position whereby you can think about 2025 and beyond. I think Tyler Guyton is the guy here. I think Oklahoma left tackle. I think he's what outside of obviously Fashanu, outside of Joe Alt. I'm not sure there's a more left tackle ready guy, and I don't even think he's ready that much. I think so. When I say ready, I mean the guy who's probably going to eventually become, for sure, a left tackle in the NFL. I think his decade-long starter. It goes against it because I like to go for need. And obviously, just imagine pairing another edge rusher on that defense. But I just think it's a smart move. I'll give me Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle, Oklahoma.
Yeah, not a bad pick, especially like you said, Lions are very much win now. They seem to have confidence in Jared Goff, so keeping him upright is going to be a priority. He was, both seasons he's been a starter, he's been on track for insane stats at the end of the season. He just hasn't kept it up. But like we've seen in the playoffs, he can play very, very well. So yeah, I really like that pick. But after Jack let them get away with it, because of course the Ravens do it every single year, we're going to pass it over to Jack, who traded with the Packers.
Yeah, I think I've now screwed myself here. Well, or Ty has screwed me.
I thought I was going to do that. That was part of my thinking. I think that you were fancying. Do you like Guyton, Jack?
He's just the best guy left for I think what the Packers need. It's not like I think he'd be a a guy I'd be loving at this spot, but I think he would have been the best guy. And if we're kind of taking the realism into it, like Mims being there at 25, he's not a Packer. Like the Packers won't take Mims as much as I'd be happy with that. He's just not their type.
Would you? Sorry, guys. Just to jump in and talk about realistic. These are the teams now we might consider looking at teams in the second round jumping in to get a quarterback. I know, Jack, you're staunch in your opinion that there are only 4 quarterbacks that should go in the first round here, but the Patriots are knocking on the door there at 34. Would they be a team that could consider coming up? Would they really entertain the idea of Bo Nix, or is that just Mac Jones Mark II?
He's a little bit better than Mac Jones, but
I love him personally. I think he's mate. I really like Bo Nix. I'm going to put it out there. I think he's good. I honestly do. I like watching his tape. I think he's professional is a silly word, but I do like him. I mean, obviously Michael Penix is there if you want the other way, if you want the explosion, the big arm,
I definitely turned the corner on him because it was really hard getting that Oregon tape out of my mind. He was not Oregon, Auburn tape. He was so bad at Auburn. So it's hard to get that out of my mind, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that a team does end up, especially a team like the Patriots. Bill's gone. What are they going to let Gerard Mayo do?
Yeah, the Broncos, the Raiders, they don't have a second round pick, I don't think. So the Raiders do. Raiders have 44.
The Raiders do. The thing is about Bo Nix is just comparing from one school to the other. I think to boil it down, I think at Auburn he was asked to play hero ball, or he took it upon himself to play hero ball. And in some moments he was actually really good at it. I think he's got that about him in his game where he can, he has the big moment in him and he can make the big play, whether that be, it was usually with his legs at that point rather than his arm. I feel like at Oregon, they kind of put a lot of stabilizers on him. We're all kids riding our bikes, so we don't fall off, put stabilizers on, don't we? I feel like that's what the Oregon offense did for him. Kept on the straight and narrow. And as much as he still has that, ability to play with his legs, he made a lot of big throws as well. I don't think a team like the Patriots has got the infrastructure around him to keep those stabilizers on him that he'll need in the NFL. And I question whether the Raiders do as well. So
I think the Raiders should be more interested in Penix, wouldn't they? I think a little bit.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I don't think, as much as, we talk about the 5th-year option, these two are older prospects as well, aren't they? In their 5th years coming out, if not 6th for Penix, am I right? So, as much as quarterbacks don't age too well, how valuable is that? Because we're pretty much in agreement these guys aren't going to be or they're unlikely to be league leading quarterbacks by the end of the rookie contract. So all you're doing is setting yourself up to have to pay another guy, a first round quarterback a lot of money. Whereas you don't back yourself into that corner as a second rounder, do you? As much?
Yeah. But all this to say, Jack, is we've given you a lot of time now to think about someone who the Packers can take. So you're welcome.
I mean, I still don't feel any better. So I guess there's 2 guys that I'm picking between, and I think for me it depends how much we're kind of weighting the what I would do and what I think might happen in this spot. So I'm gonna go. Do I go with my heart? Or do I go with my head? I'm gonna go a bit rogue here. I don't think this will happen, but I'm gonna go rogue. So the 2 guys I'm picking between, the one I'm not gonna take is Kingsley Suamataia from BYU, who I think would be a good fit in Green Bay. He's played left tackle, right tackle. He needs a bit of development, but the Packers do that better than anyone. I just can't pass up AD Mitchell at this point.
Ooh.
And the Packers receiving core is already really good. I really like the youth of that team. I think there's some real talent. Dontavian Wicks is like a breakout candidate for 2024. But there's Christian Watson's injury issues. I just think it's a tackle that I think I like, and then there's a receiver I love. So I would just go with Mitchell at this point. It won't happen. I say this. We've said before the Packers will or won't do this, and then they do it. So, but yeah. I'd be amazed, but I've got to do it.
I was going to say, no faith in Guntkunst there to come up and make a sexy pick.
No, this is all size fault, and my own, but mainly size.
Nothing pleases me more to hear that.
He's a demon after he's had a couple of Heinekens. Anyway, Jack, you are staying on the clock after your trade.
Hey?
I'm not on the clock.
49. It's me.
Hold on.
An absolute shocker.
Hold on. No, hold on.
Goodell's not going to be out of a job anytime soon.
Did he trade? Oh, fucking hell. Yeah, I thought I'd written it down wrong. I thought you traded with the Niners.
No, I was wrong. No.
Never a Goodell say that. Okay, mate, I'll just jump in and I'll save you all because it's the 49ers who are on the clock after our nothing to do with our trade. It's just our pick after our Super Bowl loss at 31. Jack, that wasn't the pick that I wanted you to make. If I'm honest, with the Packers, because this is my Brandon Ayuk replacement that you just took off my hands. So I've kind of got a bit of a dilemma myself now, which is kind of the same one that you've just been talking about, really. Be sensible and take an offensive lineman because Colton McKivitz is your right tackle. Or draft a wide receiver to replace Brandon Ayuk, who I just traded away. Now, a couple of things. First of all, this wide receiver draft is very, very good. However, am I going to get a player as good as AD Mitchell? Probably not. So do I have to just kind of swallow my pride and pick the next best? Also this tackle class is very, very good as well. Will I be able to get a starter at the back end of the second round? Probably, is my instinct. As much as we've taken about half the first round of tackles, there's still a lot of good players on the board, I think. And, the 49ers would stand a chance of getting one, I think. Someone who could at least be better than Colton McKivitz and improve that line. We're probably not going to get a long-term success of a Trent Williams at that spot like we might have done. With one player who I really like, who's on the board, who Jack mentioned. But I want to put this out to the group now that AD Mitchell's been taken off the board. But how does everyone feel about the prospect of Lad McConkey in Kyle Shanahan's offense? No, we're not big lad fans around here. That was surprising.
I was on mute. Sorry.
Fun. My only caveat, I guess, is if he's more of a slot. I think he can do both, but I think he's maybe more primarily slot. How that fits in with an offense that plays lots of multiple tight end sets and fullbacks. But if you see him as a Z rather than a slot, then I think that would be immense fun.
He can definitely do that, is my thinking. My thinking, and what is kind of not making him just do this straight away and kind of consider this and put this out to you guys as well, is obviously the presence of Debo as a similar-ish player, and also, they like to run the ball a lot and, like you say, play a lot of heavier personnel as well, which would sort of take him off the field in some senses. But it would be fun, wouldn't it?
That would be fun.
I'll do the cliche of he's a good route runner, but
he's got more to him than that.
I don't know. No, it's obviously just the cliche. But I don't know how he fits in the 49ers scheme. Like Jack said, I'm not confident in his ability to play outside the slot, but that might just be me being, a bit set off by his size.
I think he's got the athleticism and he's got the run after catch ability that they want as well. The thing is, at the wide receiver position, if we just kind of open up the conversation, Keon Coleman, I'm not a fan. To be honest with you, I don't see him as a 49ers type receiver either. And then, you've got Xavier Worthy is the guy who's kind of in this range, maybe jumping ahead of the Chiefs. But he's so small and, I feel like speed at that size is kind of, again, diminishing returns because you're going to get bashed about by the Rams and the Seahawks and, the rest of that division. I won't mention the Cardinals unless they get a couple of the picks. My other guy that I'm, kind of edging towards, if I'm going to be sensible, is Kingsley Suamataia, who, is miles better than Colton McKivitz right now, can play left and right tackle, all the things that Jack just said, and would potentially be eventually a Trent Williams succession plan, which probably sounds like the better option, really, doesn't it? But I am still very intrigued by Kyle Shanahan getting Lad McConkey on his team and using him well. But I'm gonna do the opposite of what Jack said. I'm gonna be sensible. I'm gonna go for Kingsley because I think he could sneak into round one on the night. I think he's a very, very good prospect, and you probably do get more out of him immediately by just upgrading your right tackle situation. So yeah, I'm going to lock in Kingsley from BYU.
I think that's a very, very sensible pick, given how well that offense actually ticks over already. So just having an extra little piece there to keep up Brock Purdy, because you can't let him get hit when he's getting paid as much as he's getting paid. So poor guy, probably can't afford a house in San Francisco. But final pick, you're picking for the enemy, Rory. I need you to do him dirty, do him horribly. Go after, I don't know, Sione Vaki, someone terrible.
It's a tricky choice. Obviously, they've been linked heavily with wide receiver, which is why I didn't want to sort of jump in too much with Lee, because it looked like I had a vested interest if I started bashing Lad McConkey. Because I think he would be in play. The other guy that I've got here, Troy Franklin, obviously young, fast. He interests me. And then TJ Tampa, the cornerback out of Iowa State, is another one.
A sneaky one, that one.
The hole that L'Jarius Sneed has left. And Tampa, I think once you get into the second round, cornerbacks, there's a lot of slot guys, smaller guys, Rakestraw, Sanristril. So if you're looking for your outside press corner still, Tampa's could get a jump because of that. That's potentially the way I'm leaning. But the Lad McConkey thing, I just have this thing where I think McConkey's so sneaky good that him and Mahomes, I can just see that being like a 10-year partnership that everybody's like, oh, why did we let McConkey go there? He's just like open all the time and Mahomes is just hitting him, and I can just see it happening. So I think I'll go with McConkey just for the fun of it. Give Mahomes a really clever receiver who runs really, like Kieran said, really good routes. He's going to be open a lot, and I think that the Rashee Rice news with him, I don't know whether he's going to just get like a slap on the wrist for that or not. But
it's 6 felonies, so
maybe
unlikely.
not then. So let's go with the wide receiver. Let's lock it in. I can just see McConkey and Mahomes haunting me for the next few years as a Bengals fan.
I was going to say they've won a Super Bowl without receivers, so I think that should probably permanently ban them from ever drafting offense. But it's called the No Fun League for a reason, I guess.
I'm never going to forgive me and any of you guys for not taking Chop Robinson in the first round. I'm livid about this. Absolutely livid about this. I love Chop Robinson.
Why didn't you take him then?
Yeah, that's the biggest question. I guess because I think Cardinals would have been a great spot for him. I think if you're looking for someone to compare him to, Zaven Collins, very similar kind of guy, someone who can move around that front seven at will. He's got that absolute get off that you just love, and maybe might never quite hit the heights that you hope for, but just really suggests he could be incredible. But
it's just that lack of production, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, and the cornerback was just a bigger knee for Arizona. I could have gone Detroit, but I don't think he's the epitome of grit, so to speak. So I didn't feel right there. I thought the Chiefs would have took him and had him and just made me feel sick. But I'm all right with Lad McConkey. I'm all right with that.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid pick. Like I said, ban the Chiefs from the draft forever. They seem to just be able to win games, without any players. I guess they got the ref crew on their side, though. No, I'm not salty at all. But thank you for joining us, everyone. Really enjoyed this, even if I messed up the order about 6 or 7 times.
Yeah,
you did a good job.
Yeah, thanks.
See, Rory's got my back. Fuck the rest of you. Who dey, baby? Yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks to Lee, Simon, Jack, and Rory.